Hello, everyone, and welcome to my new channel, Hidden Existence, a place where we're going to discuss and talk to people who are encountering stuff or maybe situations that are going on in the world or in our lives that we're not seeing a lot of and is kind of hidden. And I'm hoping that this place is a place for things to come to light and we can discuss and share. And what better guest to have on tonight, a person who has had an incredible encounter, something that people, are not seeing very often. And my guest is Kerry Arnold. Hello, Kerry.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I
So
said,
glad to be here.
I say guest, but you're more than a guest. You're someone.
Not tonight.
Well,
No.
you're someone I've been working closely with for the last 7 or more months. And so, we've become friends. Well, as far as I'm concerned, we've become good friends in
Yeah,
that
more like
time.
family. More
Hey,
like family. Yeah, we argue more than friends do. So
well, we do, don't we? Quite a lot. It's fun. I like it anyway. So,
yeah, keeps it interesting.
yeah, definitely. And also, to be fair, I wouldn't really be doing this if it wasn't for you, Bigfoot Odyssey, and Lyndon, your support. So, you're a big kind of person in my life at the moment that's made this kind of happen for me. So, thank you. And I love you.
Hey, look. Yeah, I love you too. I wouldn't do the researcher's report without you. So it all just kind of worked out, didn't it?
It did.
Uh,
Yeah, it has.
you
It's
know, I see myself here. I look like hell. I've been so sick for at least 2 weeks, and I'm not making excuses, but I mean you can see I'm so run down, and I've lost a lot of weight. I can see my hands when I look at my hands and I see how thin they look, and my ring just comes right off. Yeah, I've I don't know how much I weigh, but I've gone down. I've not been eating. It's been bad, but I'm here. I am feeling better.
good.
Yeah,
Good. And you're
yeah.
gonna have to get yourself better for the expedition that's coming up, which we'll talk about in a bit in case anyone hasn't heard about it. But I'm sure they have. But we can do a catch up on where you're at with that. But I want us to talk about your encounter because when we're doing the researchers report, you talk about bits of it and you can relate to stuff that we talk about. But it would be great, I think, for us to hear it all from start to finish, and go through what happened to you that day and, um, you know, what effect it had on your life.
Well, to start with, you know, I had put myself in this box. I was just like really feeling sorry for myself, I guess, and I did it for a long time, like for years. I was very introverted, and I stayed away from people. I didn't want to be around a lot of people, and it was all a result of just losing a lot of people really close to me in a short period of time. So I stayed in this group of woods that a guy that I worked with, an acquaintance, I just called him a friend, but he's more of an acquaintance. His grandfather owned this property, and he allowed me to lease it from him. I was the only one that ever went out there. I was the only person I'd ever seen out there in the woods for 7 years, and excuse me, and so I spent a lot of time out there. I mean, I clearing shooting lanes. I built shooting houses. I had food plots. I had up cameras. I probably had at least five trail cams up at any given time, and I'd uh, I'd hunted nothing but deer. I tried turkey hunting in there once, and it was I didn't think there were any turkeys in there at all. And but one day was in late 2006, late deer season. I'd gone off into the back, down into the bottoms. I don't even know if I was still on the property or not. But I'm back there and I'm trying to catch some bucks coming in, out of the bedding area while it's still daylight. And these turkeys, they just get up to roost right beside me, scared the hell out of me. And it, you know, a light bulb moment for a hunter. Now I know where there's turkeys. Now I can set up somewhere and turkey hunt. Well, I looked for a while, probably a month, for a good place that I thought I was going to turkey hunt, and got it all fixed up and set up. And it was up on a hill in this bottom, this creek bed, wrapped all the way around. It was like a 2-tier creek bed. And up on the ridges, you know, it's the South Mississippi. Up on the ridges are mostly pine trees. It's the pine belt, so that's why they call it the pine belt. And there's a lot of, in the bottoms is your hardwood, deciduous trees. But there was this clear spot, and it might have had a couple of small pine trees in it, and it was probably half the size of an NFL football field. You know, 50 yards, or not quite that wide, maybe 25 yards by, you know, 40 yards. But if you look at it like it's a football field, and this is the best way I can describe it, the sidelines would be north and south. The end zones would be east and west. And the road comes in, this little 4-wheeler path comes into the west end zone. And I got set up just on the left in the northwest corner, right by this big pine tree. And I had gallberry bushes that I had gone and cut and put kind of in the clear where I could sit down behind them and not be seen, because turkeys are not, they're not the smartest birds in the world. But if you have to hide from them, I mean, don't even blink or they're going to see you and it's over with. So, excuse me. I have to hydrate a lot. Well, on this particular day, this was on into turkey season, or on into spring. It wasn't exactly turkey season. It was turkey season for me because I really didn't care. But it was about 3 months later, so March the 10th of 2007. I got up early. I know I'd gotten out there before daylight, and I'm all camoed out. I offloaded my 4-wheeler, and I drove. I was driving down a road that goes beside the property to go into the lease road. And the road goes, you come in, it goes down a hill, and it's a curve, and it's a bad road. It's an old logging road. Nobody ever used it for anything else. And way into the back was the spot. Well, sometimes I would drive my 4-wheeler. Sometimes I would just park it in the front. On this particular day, that's what I did. I parked it right there in the front and walked in. And it's 800 yards, just about a half a mile back there to the spot. So I get back there and I get set up behind the gallberry bush, and you can just kind of see the sun starting to come up. You can see the skyline over the trees. And so I waited till I could see pretty good, I think, before I started calling. And I started calling. I had 3 calls. I had a chirp, just like a reed you put in your mouth. And I had a box call, which is just a box essentially. It's got chalk on it, and it's got a slide on the top. So it sounds like fingers across the chalkboard. You know, it's got that sound to it. And I had this thing, you shake it. It's called a locator. You shake it, and it sounds like a turkey gobbling. Well, that's what I was doing. I was hitting that. I would make the hen sounds, trying to sound like a real sexy hen. And I probably called for a while, at least 2 hours. I know the sun was up really good. It was a beautiful day. And I started to get some action. I could hear turkeys gobbling back, but I knew they were young. They were jakes, because young turkeys don't finish it. They just kind of half-ass gobble, you know. And so I was like, okay, I got some action. Maybe 10 or 15 minutes later, I'm starting to see turkeys. And what I see is this really wide game trail down to my left, down the north end zone, and left center of the east end zone. And it just kind of fades off down a hill, but it's wide, and I can see turkeys coming up that, and I can see turkeys coming all through the woods. I mean, there's a bunch of turkeys, but I didn't notice any big gobblers. So I'm getting excited, you know. I'm sitting there and I'm still calling, and the turkeys in the front, they're starting to come up the hill, and I can see most of the body of the turkeys. And probably 40 feet before coming into the clearing, they stopped and then perked up and then just gone. They just exploded out of there to my left, to the north. and all of them did. And that's when I could really tell how many it was when they all took off. It was about 30. It wasn't any less than that. And they're turkeys are big birds and they're loud, when they're getting the hell out of somewhere. And just about the time, and of course I'm aggravated, I'm upset now, no way they saw me is what I'm thinking. Of course, you have to think they probably saw me or, something clued them in. And it's about the time I couldn't hear them anymore, I could hear what sounded like somebody walking straight out in front of me down through the south from west to east, and that drop off. It was footsteps in the leaves, 2 feet. And so I stood up. And I'm kind of looking. Didn't see anybody at first, and I don't remember if I could hear them the whole time or not. But when I finally did get to see who it was, I could see just about from the top of the shoulders up, and it's a black guy, which made perfect sense. I mean, the property I'm on belongs to a black family. The whole family lives up on the road. The grandfather and all his sons and daughters, all their sons and daughters and nieces and nephews, a bunch of people live out there, So it's one of them. And I'm watching him, and what I think he was doing was coming up kind of close and look at me. And he did this a couple times. Come up and look at me and then look back where he's going, and then look at me and look back where he's going. And I didn't notice that he wasn't standing upright or anything. I didn't notice that until later. But I'm standing up there and I see him look at me, not dawning on me how he knew where I was. But he knew where I was because he was looking at me. So I raised my hand. I waved my hand at him. Hey, I'm right here. Don't shoot me. I won't shoot you. Well, then I couldn't see him anymore. And I couldn't understand why he didn't come on up. I thought maybe he was tired. And because the way he was walking was like he was lumbering, like when I finally got to see him, it looked like about a 400-pound dude, like a fat guy with a set of coveralls on. And before he did that, I had that pine tree behind me. I just plopped my back against it and I put my shotgun. I had my right hand up over the butt and my left hand, I had it down on my side, a non-aggressive. I'm not going to shoot at you position. So I see this guy coming up through the thickets, probably 150 feet away at this point. I'm not paying a whole lot of attention, but I did notice that it looked like he was wearing a camouflage vest. And that really got upset me because if he's wearing camouflage, then he's out there hunting, and this is my lease. And all these things are going through my head. What am I going to say to this guy? Because he's obviously coming out to this little opening right here, and he's going to come see me. And I'm thinking all these things. He's lost, or he's an amateur, nonetheless. So I'm watching him, and it's through the thicket. And I mean, like I said, I can see the guy coming, and he doesn't look quite right. But it's still, nothing's registering, I'm just upset. And there's 2 pine trees, probably 10-inch pine trees, 25 feet tall, and they're about 3 or 4 feet apart from each other, just down that grade, maybe 8 or 10 feet, in a little opening, a gap that's probably 4 or 5 feet wide. Maybe, yeah, probably almost directly in the corner of the south and the east sideline and end zone there. And he probably gets about 10 feet away from there, and I see him, and he reached his hand out to grab him, and I could see. I mean, I didn't know what I was looking at, but I could see skin on the inside of his arm, and I could see there was hair hanging down. Like I said, didn't register what I was looking at. I just thought he's wearing something weird. It wasn't, until thinking back of exactly what I was looking at. But this forearm was huge. It was it was the size of a football, and it was a lot bigger than his bicep. It was so misproportioned from what I remember. And he grabs this tree and he pulls himself right up to it. I mean, he pulls it right into his shoulder, and he stood up. Excuse me. Oh. And when he stood up and squared up, he just looked a whole lot bigger than he did when he was walking up. I mean, massive. And I think those were the moments, uh, the moments of transition, that sudden realization that this is not a person, and then, but still enough disbelief to where I'm waffling back and forth. And but the thing that sealed it for me is when he opened his mouth and he started making the most ungodly sound I'd ever heard in my life. It sounded like multiple sets of vocal cords, and it was sounded like something that you should hear on a demon movie, The Exorcist or something like that, like back mass and uh, that tone. And I mean, that completely overwhelmed me. I think, I'm standing here like this, and I just feel this rush just wash over me like somebody poured cold water over my head. And I knew immediately what it was then. I mean, this is a Sasquatch. This is what everybody has been seeing and calling a Sasquatch. It's real. But even after that, I think I still, is this a dude? Is this somebody messing with me? It's all really quick. Just the first few moments of realizing what this is.
Before then, how much? I mean, I know you knew about Sasquatch, but had you looked into it, or had you just heard stories and?
No, I mean, I watched In Search of. I'd seen the Patterson Gimlin film. I mean, it wasn't an interest. I was completely and totally indifferent. I'm not sure I didn't believe in Bigfoot. I don't know. I probably thought it was possible.
Yeah,
Regardless, it's reserved for the mountains, Pacific Northwest. This is not anywhere around
yeah,
here. I've been in these woods for 29 years at this point, and never even, never heard that I would attribute to being a Sasquatch. I imagine that I had heard plenty and just didn't, pin it down to that. So I'm just completely and totally mortified and petrified as I'm leaned up and I got one foot up on this tree. I'm standing on one leg essentially, leaned up, and I got the nerve to move. I wanted to get my hand down on the grip, and yeah, I think this is all happened really quick. I mean, the story is kind of long, but all this part of it happened really fast. I mean, in just a few seconds. And I go to get my hand down on the grip, and when he saw me move and I moved my hand down, he got really upset and he started rocking back and forth. He might have rocked two or three, four times. I don't remember. But I think just about the time I was gonna get my hand on the grip is when he blew at me, or he huffed at me. And it was so powerful. It was like standing in front of a big speaker, because it hit me like a wave. It hit me enough to where it startled me. It wasn't really loud, I mean, it was kind of loud, but it wasn't like extremely ear piercingly loud. It was just powerful, like, like, no, don't put your hand on that gun. Well, I think just about the time it hit me, and then that startled me, and that was enough for me to move. And I moved, and I took about 4 steps into the clearing to the side. I didn't go any closer toward him, but I came to the side, and now I'm out from under the tree limbs, the low limbs that were on that pine tree, and I can see the top of the tree that he's holding on to, because this shade, I mean, it's whipping back and forth. I mean, 3 or 4 people couldn't have done what he was doing. It was just, and that really scared me. I think that was one of the moments that I thought I might not make it out of here. I'm at the very least, I'm going to have to fight this thing all the way out, because I've got a Benelli 3.5-inch 12 gauge automatic shotgun with turkey shot, which is not really anything to sneeze at. I mean, you can blow somebody's head off with that, but he was going to have to get a lot closer, and I was certain that I was going to have to shoot him. And then that's what I'm thinking. I'm standing there, and I'm ready now, but I'm not pointing my gun at him. And he's rocking back and forth. He did it a few more times, and then I can hear the tree, just the whoosh of the limbs on the tree. The whole thing was just a very powerful episode. And and I'm sitting here ready, and he stopped doing that, and that's when I really noticed that what he had was about 4 inch long hair, but it was sparse on his body. I could see his dark gray skin underneath, and his face was black. His face was darker than the rest of his skin, and he had mud, what looked like mud. I'm probably 90% sure it was mud all over his right side. It was kind of around his right side, on the front. That's why I thought it was a vest,
Mm.
because when I saw that, it kind of made it look like he was wearing camouflage. But apparently, he had been laying in the mud, because he had leaves and sticks, and I mean, it was just a mess. And so I'm standing here and going through these things, and wondering, I'm almost positive he's going to come at me at some point. And I keep looking to my left, for something keeps telling me to just look to my left, because all to my right is open. I could see pretty good with my peripheral, I guess, but I was still pretty close to some thick stuff over here. So I kept just to make sure, I guess. When he stopped uh, rocking back and forth, he rolled his lips back and showed all of his teeth. And that's what I could see. He had a gap in his front teeth, like a Michael Strahan gap. He had long canines, not really long, but longer than his other teeth on top and the bottom. The bottom, I could see him sticking up. And that was scary. I mean, that was another terrifying moment.
Mm.
And he stuck his tongue out, stuck it straight out, just like a point, right through his teeth. Wasn't at me really, just like he was tasting the air, was the way I normally say it. And then he went back to making that growling noise, and I think it was words. It felt like, from what I remember, that there were, pauses, like there was form to it, and he was using some kind of language to talk to me, but it was like he was talking slow. Maybe it was where I would understand him, though I didn't. And
What impression were you getting off it, though? Like you said, you kind of knew he was saying, "Don't touch that gun," before then.
yeah, well, that's kind of what I'm thinking back,
Yeah.
and getting that, in the moment, what I'm thinking is where I'm going to shoot him. Am I going to shoot? Can I shoot him in the head? Because it's automatic. I can shoot 3 times really fast and then reload while I'm running. Those are kind of the things. Do I try to shoot him in the leg where he can't chase me and run me down? Nonetheless, I don't think what I've got is going to kill him right away. I think he's still probably going to get me. He may die later. These are my last moments. I've stumbled into a nightmare, essentially. And because I'm so far away from my four-wheeler, 800, half a mile, that's a long walk. Well, he stopped growling, making his noise, and I think almost immediately he took his hand off the tree and he turned his body to the right and he cocked his head like this. He didn't turn his head. His head was sitting down in front of his shoulders. We're up here. He cocked his head to the side, still looking at me, and he took probably 2 or 3 steps toward the game trail, quartered away from me, and then turned and walked dead away from me through the thickest stuff out there. And because I could still hear him. I mean, with the leaves, he was very intently. He wasn't trying to sneak off. It was big, loud steps, and I heard him all the way until he got into the bottom, and I'm still standing there, and I think that's when he yelled, and that was loud. That was powerful, but it wasn't like what you would think. It was like a baboon is the way I describe it. You hear baboons, and this thing they do is kind of a buildup. It's kind of a wow, and it's so loud. And once he did that, everything was quiet. I mean, I can remember the wind was blowing just a little bit. I mean, it's early March. The wind's always going to be blowing then. And I can remember how tall the grass was. Just those little things like that. And I stood there for a good while, maybe another minute. of standing there, and all of a sudden I feel this. I can feel myself breathing. I'm starting to notice my heart pounding, and I'm taking long, deep breaths. I'm not really breathing fast, but I'm breathing hard and taking long breaths. And and that's when I decided to get out of there. And I turned around and I took a few steps over and picked up my backpack. So I still have that backpack. And I left everything else laying there, all the calls and all that chair, everything probably there for many years. And walked out, and I probably made it about 20 feet, and I stopped, and I was like, okay, do I want to take the plug out and put two more in it? And I was like, no, I don't want to get caught in that position. So I took 3 shells out of my pocket and put them in my hand and walked out. And I would take really short, quick steps, probably go for 50, 60 feet and stop and listen to see if I could hear anything coming behind me. Hold on, Daniela. 1 second. I apologize.
That's all right. I've actually got a picture of that Kerry drew.
Yeah.
Just showing that picture that was in the group that you put up.
That's not exactly right. The hair is not even close. His hair was really short all over his head. But I mean, that's the shape of his head. And, that reminds me of it when I see it, really pronounced cheeks, extremely large mouth, pointed nose, wide nostrils, but pointed the bridge and had a point to his nose, like Scottie Pippen, more like. That's not, like I said, that's not exactly right. But
Yeah.
I did a lot of erasing on that on that drawing just to get a sense of what I remembered seeing. And so I'm walking out, and the road curves and goes up a hill to the. It's just like a little side road that people traveled a lot. And my heater came on and burning up. And I get to that hill, and I'm coming up, and it starts to open up, and I feel really good. I'm about to make it out of here. I can see my 4-wheeler, a view of heaven from a seat in hell. And I stopped. I stopped, and I turned around to look. And as soon as I got turned around, I heard a very distinctive sound of a tree break, a tree or a tree limb, whatever it was fresh because it had that crackle to it. That pow, and it was, like a rifle shot going off. That's when I ran. I got on my 4-wheeler, and I think that was probably the most terrifying moment, was having to put my gun down to get on the 4-wheeler. I couldn't go forward the way I'd parked. I couldn't go forward. I had to back up toward this tree break, and I'm thinking, he's coming. He's right behind me, so, but I did. I made it out. I got to the road, I hauled ass to the house, and I didn't load my 4-wheeler up. I just kind of pushed it up beside the house. I went and got in I had an Avalanche, an 05 Avalanche. And I got my rifle, my 7mm Magnum, out of the back. I made sure it was loaded. And I sat there in the front watching the back tree line for I don't know how long, 20 minutes, until I felt like I could drive. And even then, I think I probably drove home about 40 miles an hour. And then, but still thinking about being out there for that long and having all these things come back to me that had happened, these strange things that I had always attributed to something else. I heard knocking almost every single time I went in there. I was like, sound like somebody was building a roof, but it wouldn't last very long. It would probably last intermittently for about 20 minutes, but it was rhythmic. It was pow, 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 and it will stop and it will start again. But like I said, it didn't last long, but I remember it. I remember hearing it a lot, getting off the 4-wheeler, and I'm thinking, well, somebody's hammering on something at the house, but it was a lot closer than that. But you fool yourself. I was fooling myself into saying, well, it's just kind of carrying through the hollow, or whatever. But Yeah, I think that was them because I camped out in there a lot and heard that knocking at night, but it was always way off. I would hear it sound like it was 300 or 400 yards away in one direction, and I would hear it again way over here, 200 yards away. So there were a lot of things that happened in there that should have clued me into something, but I was too arrogant and full of myself uh, to
to
to believe
notice.
that it was anything other than a deer or other animals or somebody. I was suspicious that people were coming in there sometimes whenever I was in there.
Mm. Do you think he saw you hiding from them turkeys before you even knew he was around?
I think they absolutely knew I was there. I think they had seen me come in every time I come. Only one way in there, one easy way anyway. And I think that they saw me when I came in, and just they knew I was there, but I was doing something different. I was hunting a different place, hunting a different animal. I had 30 turkeys coming into me. Um, I think that was the whole issue was uh, was the turkeys because now I'm hunting past deer season. The only time I ever was in there with my rifle was during deer season, which lasts about 3 months. And then, for 7 years, deer season's over. I might have still gone out there, but I didn't have a gun, or I didn't, I wasn't looking for anything. I was doing something, and now I'm still hunting. So I think that might have been. I think there were a lot of factors. I think they knew who I was, had seen me for so long, watched me for 7 years, shoot animals, take animals out, do all the things that I did in there, and just didn't like what I was doing and let me know it.
Yeah. So when did it hit you? When at what point did it really hit you? After after the adrenaline's kind of gone down and you sat maybe at home and suddenly did you really sort of, am I making sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew
Realization of
what it
it
was
maybe.
before I ever got out of the woods. I knew that this is a Sasquatch. This has got to be what this is. And a lot of the drive home is when I was, thinking about all the things that I'd experienced. And I mean, for months, I would think of something that happened. It's like, this is, I can't believe this. It's the whole thing is a whole WTF, you know,
Yeah.
situation. Like, you stop and you're like, there's just no way. How is this possible? How is it possible that I was out there for this long and didn't see them? Didn't I heard them? There's no doubt I heard them. They messed with me. I know they messed with me. But not to be so totally oblivious and unaware of what was actually going on around me.
Yeah.
I
Just,
just I couldn't understand it.
yeah. Um. So, who did you tell first? How did you
The
share? When did you share it with someone?
first people I ever told was some guys that I worked with. It was 2012. Podcast had just come out. So this is 5 years later.
Right.
Uh, they were arguing about Bigfoot, how it's real, and no, it can't be real. And I was right there. I just spoke up and said, "Yeah, man, these things are real. I saw one," and I kind of gave them the summarized version, of what I had seen. And they didn't say a whole lot after that. It wasn't. I don't know. You'd have to understand the people that I work with, I guess, and my position and role at work. I didn't get messed with a lot. I didn't get ridiculed a lot about anything. It was always they always treated me very professionally.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, they were the first ones that I told, and then when I saw what Mark Zasky was putting out in 2016, that's when I really started because he was showing you their face. This is what I was seeing. It was what he was putting out there. I was like, this guy's found them. He's putting that out there, and I contacted him, and I mean, he got me. He's the first one that got me back into the woods, and of course, Linda. She has just been a saint through the whole thing. And because when you hold something in, and I don't know, maybe if it's a truth, this thing that and you hold it in, it's like trying to hold an air bubble cupped in your hand under the water. Some comes out. You have a human shaped hand. It's gonna can't hold it in. It's gonna come out. That's what was happening. I was trying to hold in this not this thing that I knew to be true, but it was coming out. I would have nightmares, and I would have these little baby panic attacks at the most inopportune times. It didn't matter what I was doing. A lot of times, like I've said before, I could be driving down the road. It didn't happen every time, but just look over into the woods, and I get this washed over feeling. And I used to get it a lot. I haven't had it in a couple of years. Um,
Do you think doing your documentaries and getting more involved in the Bigfoot community has helped you
oh, absolutely.
deal with some of that?
Yeah, that's the most cathartic thing was uh, was talking to other people. Because I tried to research, and that just wasn't going to fly. I didn't go back in the woods ever again. I sold everything that I had except for my dad's gun, and my brother has it now. And I mean, I have guns now, but I had gotten rid of everything, thousands of dollar tree stands, and um, I had, fortunately enough, taken all my cameras down after deer season. So I sold all those, and never got a picture of one. The whole game camera, the 5 game cameras I had strategically placed out there, I never caught one on camera. I mean, not that I recognized anyway. It wasn't anything plain where he was standing up there smiling big, and I probably got eye shine in the background that I thought were deer. That could have been them. Who knows? I don't remember.
I'm just going to address a couple of questions in the chat before they
Okay.
disappear. Do you think he sensed your fear and backed off? Andy gone fishing. Hi, Andy.
No, I don't. I don't think so, Andy. I'm sure he knew I was afraid of him. Uh, a blind man could have saw that I was terrified. I really don't know how I didn't pass out from the whole thing. It was just that intense uh, 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 of a situation. But I don't. What I do think is that I shut down, except for my autonomic functions. Obviously my heart's still beating. I'm still breathing. I'm still alive. But I couldn't. I don't think I could have processed anything outside of him standing right there in front of me, and what I was thinking. Where am I going to shoot him? And I would have shot him in the moment. If I'd had my rifle, I would have shot him because I didn't know anything. Knowing what I know now, obviously I wouldn't shoot one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I would have, because I thought he was going to kill me. I thought he wanted to kill me, and I think the only reason, I thought for a long time the only reason he didn't is because of that gun, because he knew exactly what it was. He knew it wasn't good. It wasn't going to be good for him. That is something that was going to hurt him.
Yeah. That's Lady in the Woods, D. Kerry, were there any other strange movements by the creature that you thought of later?
Well, I mean, the way he walked was kind of weird. Like he was tired, like he was lumbering, long, short. That's what I thought was a big old fat black dude that was lost and tired, walking through thicket and briars, and making it through it pretty relatively with relative ease, going through there. But it didn't, like I said, nothing dawned on me or registered to me until that the moment where he started making the noises. There's no way a human being can make.
Yeah. Did you feel, and some people talk about like time loss or anything like that, or did it just feel like everything was going really slow, or do you think you might have?
Oh no, yeah, it felt like it lasted forever, and And if I close my eyes and if I can look at my watch, I can close my eyes and try to go through the whole thing with detail from the first time I saw him till the time he walked away. And it's just about a minute.
Right.
So he was probably at that tree for 30 seconds, maybe, if
I
that.
mean, it's quite a long time, though, isn't it? You know,
Yeah,
it's quite a long time
yeah.
to.
But that's a minute of him, of me seeing him, him doing that, me waving at him walking on around the point, me putting my back against thing, him coming up, and then hand on the tree, and then here's me running off, and then everything else happened in between. So it was all, yeah, I mean, it's a long time, but if you weren't thinking about any of that and you listened to the story, you would think that it lasted longer than
Yeah, yeah.
that.
There's just a lot of detail that you've managed to.
Yeah,
It was right in front of you. You've
had
been able
12
to.
years to think about it.
Yeah, so a long time. Um, there was another one here. Did you walk into your hunting spot while it was dark?
I did.
Right.
Yeah, it was the sun hadn't come up good yet, but I was out there in the dark all the time. That wasn't a big deal. But I think they see pretty well in the dark.
Donna Stokes, Kerry, do you think Bigfoot are a people or a primate or something else?
Yeah, I think they're a type of people. Obviously not human like we are, but yeah, I think they're just another offshoot. I mean, there were during the Miocene, there were as many as 30 upright walking primates, and we find their skeletons and skulls all the time. Which, as hard as it is to make a fossil, they find these complete skeletons, which leads me to believe that they either bury their dead or they do something with them. They don't leave them around for us to find.
Yeah. Blue line Bigfoot. How much do you think this thing weighed?
He was at least a 600-pound guy, maybe 6'7", could have been 8. I don't know. If you
Wow.
can imagine Paul White, a wrestler, goes by the name of Big Show. That body type and just a bigger head, a lot more football shaped head. It's like his face came down to a point, his head came to a point, but it was, it wasn't straight up and down. It was like a football sitting at an angle, and this, no neck. Obviously, there's a neck, but the muscles back here come up so high that it just looks like you know, one swoop. Plus, with the head sitting down in the front, the way it sits. Yeah, and I mean, I didn't really see his eyes. They were just looked like wraparound sunglasses.
Did you say how tall you thought it could have been?
I would have put him right at 7 feet. He might have been 6'10". I don't know. Taller than me. I'm 6'4", and standing down that grade, he was just about the same height as me. So if he was standing a foot down that grade, then it might have been a foot. I don't know. It was really shallow for the first 8 or 10 feet, and at the distance, he was 80 feet away, and I know that because I had stepped off exactly where I was to the farthest point, which was that corner. It was 72 feet to that corner, and he was a good 8 or 10 feet down that. So 80, 82 feet, close enough. I could make out every bit of detail. I could see exactly what it was. It wasn't some guy in a suit messing with me, which crossed my mind for a split second, that somebody was messing with me.
Did you know it was a male for definite?
No, the
Okay.
grass, the sagebrush was too tall. So I mean, I could still kind of see his legs, but I couldn't tell if there was any genitals or anything. I mean, I believe it was a male. I think he was young because his teeth were very white. His hair was black. His face was black. I think he was a young male. Uh, Upset. He was very upset.
Mm. Um, D again. Did you get ill at all after your sighting?
I don't remember if I got sick or not. I know I I broke down a few times uh, going home because I thought I'd escaped with my life. You have to putting into context. I thought I was I was lucky and got out of there alive. That people see these things all the time. They just don't live to tell about it. I mean, and the one of the first things I did was get on the internet, which wasn't that old at the point. I mean, the internet was around, but there was not a whole lot out there on Bigfoot. It's a lot of blurry pictures and a lot of anecdotes, a lot of stories. But even the stories that I heard or read didn't come close to what happened to me. It was just so fantastic. The whole thing. I couldn't tell anybody. I just couldn't. And then, of course, when Wes Germer, thank God for him, comes out with this podcast, Sasquatch Chronicles, and you start hearing these stories, and then you realize what happened to me was relatively anemic, by comparison.
Yeah. Um, did you got in touch with him because you wanted to you wanted to share yours?
Yeah, well, I wanted to get our Bigfoot Odyssey name out there.
Right. Okay.
So I kind of made a deal. I'd give him my story if he'd plug Bigfoot Odyssey, and yeah, and I talked to Wes a lot. I've talked ever since then. We've talked quite a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's one of those guys. He puts a lot of irons in the fire, and I'm glad he's as successful as he is with it. Really.
Yeah, definitely. Phyllis, I heard this too. I read it somewhere this week. Some researcher telling us, I think he was an expert, Kerry. I don't know if you've met any
Oh
of those
boy.
expert researchers out there. And he said that they'll eat your brains. They'll eat your brains. So, yeah, I'm going to try and get him on the show because we need some expert.
When I hear things like that, I just have to ask the questions. How could someone possibly know this? Even though they're putting it out there, as a fact, and I think a lot of it is yeah, are these people that just they ruin their own credibility because people are not stupid. People are smart enough to know and at least ask themselves these questions if they're not too starstruck with the person or whatever. And they just have to represent the highness of the example. I know I've lived among the Sasquatch people. I know all these things.
Yeah.
And just no way to possibly know it. I've heard so many experts talk about the one guy, God love him. And I actually do like this guy. But when I heard him say it, it flew all over me. And he said it. If someone tells you they saw a Bigfoot and his knees were locked back, he's lying. Now, how could you possibly know that a Sasquatch can't lock their knees back? That's like an examination table uh, fact, you know. And even then, just because that one couldn't do it doesn't mean they all can't do it. I mean, from what we've learned, at least in the last 2 years of talking to so many people, that the diversity of this creature is so vast that the behavior and the immutable characteristics do appear to be the same, but they all act and look so much different from one another, just like us, just like people just in the United States. Our language is the same, but our tone and our accent and our dialect are all different in just different parts of the same country.
Yeah.
So I can imagine Sasquatch being the same. I mean, I believe they have a language. I think it's possible that they don't all speak the same language. The Native Americans, and as many as 18 million Native Americans lived on this North American continent for thousands of years. 30 major tribes, over 400 different offshoots, and they all have a different language. Some of the words are the same. So I don't see why Sasquatch would be any different, being isolated from tribe to tribe or family to family, or however they group up. But I do think they love each other enough to want to be around one another, family groups or whatever.
Yeah. Well, getting back to the brain eating, I asked him the question because you know me. I said, did you see Bigfoot eating brains? And never got back to me. So I'll wait for the proof.
Well, I don't want to mention names, but I used to listen to this one guy a lot, and he said this one thing. I'm sure a lot of you have heard me say this too. He said, the Sasquatch will, he was so matter of fact about it that this is what they do. They live up in the higher ground. And when the sun goes down, when it gets dark, they come down into the lower lying areas to hunt. And they like to hunt about a mile apart from each other. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? Do you know what it would take to know that? Really? I mean, seriously, what would it take to know that? First, you'd have to know where they were, and then you'd have to be observing them and them not know you were there. So they would actually be in their natural, state. And actually, then you'd have to know that what he was doing was hunting. Okay. And then you have to have somebody a mile apart watching another one doing the same thing. And then you'd have to repeat it to know it was something that they did, that they do, and not just something that they did. And so when I hear things like that, that's when I turn it off.
Yeah,
I can't listen to you anymore because you're gonna BS me. And I don't, if you can do that, then you can just tell me whatever.
yeah, exactly. And I must admit, we've heard some rubbish, haven't we,
Mm,
over the last few months?
we have.
Not on the researchers' report, on just the odd people that we speak to, when we talk together, we
I,
tell each other.
yes, I think we've been pretty lucky with the researchers report.
Oh God,
You've
yeah,
done really good with getting guests there and getting people that are very respectful. We've never had an argument, I don't think. I've wanted to argue a few times, but I mean, I restrain.
with me.
No, with the guest.
Yeah, I know.
I don't have a problem arguing with you.
Yeah, no, you don't. No, it comes naturally. I think we've had some great guests on, and we've just learned so much of people's different experiences. And like you're saying, there's so many different descriptions of these things and characteristics, personalities, the way they react. I mean, it's just so diverse, but there's still, ultimately, they're all having the same effect on people, which is, well, for
Yeah.
most people, some people are embracing these experiences, but
Well, one conclusion that I've come to here recently is because I've heard this so many times. Someone that's lived in this one area, or this one part of the country for 20 years, and all of a sudden they start getting this activity around their house. Excuse me, that they never really noticed before. And I think, and what it's usually accompanied by is this awareness because they've heard something from someone else or watched a show. I listened to this account and I was like, wow, these things must really be real. So now, when it's not a part of your paradigm, you don't act like it's a part of your paradigm. But once it becomes a belief, like a solid, you haven't seen it, but you truly believe, you have to fit that into your paradigm. And I think subconsciously it affects the way we behave. So when, you get home and you get out of your car, now you're looking around a little more and you're actually paying attention to different things. And I think they watch us so closely that they can tell when something is different. And I think they know when the game is up. And I believe that's what happens. And of course, now 2 nights later, the house gets slapped. Rocks are starting to get thrown. Dead animals start to show up here and there. A footprint that shows up in the garden. I think that that there comes a point where these things, they realize it's almost like OCD. Like they have to hide and stay hidden and stay concealed so much that once they're found out, it's like throwing your hands up and okay, it's over now. We're going to mess with these people. It's almost exactly like that. And that I may be completely off with that, but I've heard it so many times from so many people. I lived here this whole time. I never noticed a thing until I started looking, and then they started, reacting to me, acting. So I think that's my latest thing I've been going through and thinking a lot about. lately.
Yeah. Do you think? Well, obviously, you've come to a point now where you're doing the expedition, and if you think about the whole experience and like, I don't know for you, but like coincidences, I think things are meant to happen, or they happen for a reason. And if you think about it now, do you think this was what you were meant to do with this experience?
Uh, I don't know. I think maybe. You know, I'm a person that likes to prepare. You know, it took me a long time. I just no 2 years ago nobody knew who we were. And now we're relatively well known in the Bigfoot community because of the show. But I mean, I was in this doing this for 10 years before that. I was looking at everybody else's stuff. I was just not putting myself out there, and I think that was maybe preparing until I finally realized, Linda's the one that did it. She started the whole thing, and I just kind of took off with it. But you know, Abraham Lincoln, he said, if I have 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend 6 of it sharpening my axe. So I think I've been sharpening my axe for a long time, and
Yeah,
now we're trying to chop down the tree, and that's what this expedition is. It's going to be the last for me anyway, as far as going into the woods, and I'm going to do it. I'm determined that I'm going to go out there, and I'm not going to be looking for Bigfoot. These guys that are going are going to be looking for them and doing all the strategies that we have put together. And I'm just going to be filming them do it. Of course, Mark told me, he said, Kerry, it's probably going to be worse for you because you're going to be noticing and doing all these things plus, filming these guys. And he's probably right. I was in the woods for so long. There's not a whole lot that I've forgotten about being in the woods and direction and having a little geostatic sense. So I think all those things are going to play into this, and with the equipment that we're taking on this and the caliber of guys that we have going, these are really stand up people, real salt of the earth, really high standing in the community type of people, and that was important, because if we're going to sell this as being documentary fact, this is what this is. No, I mean, no matter what we get, the people doing it are as important as the evidence that we collect, because people have to believe them. They've got to believe these guys, or we fail. And
yeah,
it's going to be a very interesting trip, and it's getting close.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you say you're not the one. You're just going to be there with the film. But are you prepared to see one? You could just be.
Oh yeah.
You
Um,
know,
yeah. I'm going to be
just
looking. I'm going to be looking for them.
yeah.
You know, if I see one, I'm going to go after him. I've already decided that. So
Right.
I don't really want to,
I
but
know.
I
It's
can't. I can't not do it at this point.
yeah.
There was one there, and I knew I could see him on the thermal, but couldn't see him with my eyes. I knew he was there. I, I may not be the one to actually go in there, but I'll be at the ready helping direct these guys. And then I may go in with somebody or whatever. But we're going into places that people don't normally go. We're going into their living room. And I think we're going to upset them pretty good. If you watch Mark Zasky and I, we just recorded our first two shows on the podcast, Mark and Kerry A to Z. You can find that on Patreon and go sign up right now if you want to. It's Mark and Kerry A to Z, capital A, capital Z.
I'll put a link up now while you
Okay.
tell us what it's about.
Yeah, we recorded our first two shows, and the second show we talked a lot about Bigfoot and some of the things. We show a lot of videos and talk about them, and he showed some pictures and we talked about them. And this is, I mean, the place he took these pictures was connected to where we're going to be doing the expedition, and you clearly see this thing that he saw, and this creature, and it's 8 feet tall, and it's massive and ugly, and 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 I'm sitting there looking at it, and this is what's going through my head while we're doing this podcast. This show is like, this is what we're going to experience, because this happens to him almost every time he goes out there. Of course, he knows what to do. That's the reason he's directing the whole thing. He knows exactly what to tell us to do and put us in the positions where he knows they like to hang out. And I think that's going to be a major part of, if we're successful, that's going to be a major part of it, is Mark Zasky and him putting us in the right spot to do it. But that's what's going through my head, is this, because this thing sticking his head out there looking isn't happy. It's not a happy creature. You can tell he's angry. He's got an angry look on his face. And yeah, you guys are going to want to see that. Um, it's a decent show. It's $2 a month, and we'll probably do a show every week. We may do 2 shows a week. I don't know. But it's just Mark, myself, and Mark, and we're talking about a lot of different things that most people don't talk about. We did, the first one was chupacabra, and we showed videos and talked about it, and we get into a lot of things. It's A to Z. It's everything under the sun. Of course, it's a play on words. It's Arnold and Zasky, but I mean, it's still we talk about everything, and so it's I mean, I hope it's enjoyable for people. We had a good time doing it. So
Yeah. Now, I think I know the answer to this one, and I think it's no, but we'll just make it clear to people.
no, D, that's I think that's a suicide mission, to shoot one, to kill one. I mean, obviously we're going to be armed, and I don't know how much that's going to affect what's going on, but that's, we're not armed for Sasquatch. We're armed for alligators and big hogs, because those are pretty easy to find out there in this place. It
And
would have to
possibly
be a
more dangerous than
situation.
Sasquatch.
Do
Y-
what?
I said they're possibly more dangerous than the Sasquatch, the
Yeah,
alligator, the
yeah.
snake.
I mean, a male razorback boar, about a 400-pounder, he'll strafe you. He'll knock you on the ground and then spin around and come back and slice you wide open. So yeah, I mean, it's happened a lot, and
Yeah,
they're hard to kill. You really gotta have something that's gonna knock one down. Um, it's
it's quite a thing to take on. There's so many
it is. The real deal is gonna
factors
be
to it.
just the continuous filming, just being set up to film constantly. The only time we're not going to be filming in the woods is when we're in transition, and that's when people are going to see what's going on at base camp, because there's going to be cameras running there constantly. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth, what's going on. Everybody's going to get the full story, 168-hour uh, Bigfoot expedition. But I think shooting one, he'd have to have his hands on me, I think.
Yeah. Well, if your life's in danger with whatever, I mean, it'd be the same if it
Yeah,
was an alligator, a snake, or a boar, whatever, a hog. You got to look after your number one at the end of the day, and you
right.
know. So, but I'm looking forward to it. As scary as it is,
Well, nighttime is what's going to be the worst, because these places are kind of dark in the daytime. Some of these canopies that you go in, and then even though you've got, 3 or 4 other guys with you, just having the nerve to go into this thick, this palmettoed area in the dark, where you've got about 4 feet of vision all the way around you. That FLIR camera is going to be a major tool during that, walking through and shining the camera. You pick up a heat signature, it's going to be 5 or 6 feet away from you before you pick it up. So that's going to be pretty nerve wracking, I think, and unnerving for these guys. And then, not to mention the sounds. You can hear these things walking around. There's dry palmetto leaves. There's no sneaking for anything anywhere. You're going to hear them. I've heard them down there myself. Mark hears them all the time. You can hear them walking up. He throws them apples, and they come, for the apples.
yeah.
And
Are you
so,
setting up audio devices in places, or
yeah,
you are doing?
we are going to have,
Yeah,
we're going to have several recorders in different places. We're going to have parabolic microphone with us, while we're going through, tromping through the bush.
yeah.
and night vision cameras.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for it to happen.
Yeah, I know. That's what everybody says. They can't wait, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to take a long time to put together, though. The way I want to do it and the way I want to present it to everyone, it's going to take several months just to put all the episodes together.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going to do it a per video thing. I think we're going to put it on a Patreon page, and it's going to be $5 to watch the whole thing, all 7 episodes. So, and anybody that's donated to the cause, I'll just send you your money back.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll all be sortable when it comes to it. Well, look, we've come up to over an hour. I know you're not so good, so I'm not going to keep you too long, so you can get some rest and get yourself better. We're back on tomorrow night on the Researchers Report. We've got Tracy Arnold on from Hacking with Sasquatch Outlaw.
My cuz, I actually get to talk to him this time. I missed him last time.
Yeah, we had a good show last time with him, so it'd be good if you're there as well.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for joining in tonight and showing up for the first show. Hope it's gone well. We've all enjoyed it, and I'll be here next. Sorry?
I had a good time.
Yeah, oh good. Glad. I'll be here next Friday at 7 p.m. Central with my guest, who I'm probably going to announce tomorrow night on the Researchers Report. So everyone will have to tune into the Researchers Report so they know who my guest is for next week. So thanks everyone. Take care, and I'll see you all soon. Good night.
Good night.